Welcome to Jake and Trev Review Everything Live. I'm Trev.
And I'm Jake.
And here you are. You're joining us. It's week 58. I'm going to admit to not having any 58 reference.
The Fightin' 58.
The Fightin' 58.
I love that about the Colbert Report. Like, every time they do Better Know District. The Fightin' whatever.
The Fightin' 101st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, I hear you.
So I think we have questions already.
We have some questions waiting for us.
I know your mom. Oh, yeah. Say hi to Trevor's mom. Say hi to my dad.
That's right. You know the score. That's how you start. Jake and Trevor Review Everything Live.
This is how you do it.
Boom, boom, boom.
This is how you do it.
Yeah, we got a good show for you this week. Some things to talk about. And some questions to answer. So let's get started with a question to answer.
Oh, right. So my dad asks, what are the odds that the new Dracula movie goes over well? I give it 6 to 1.
That's what I say.
6 to 1 is.
I make a fart noise
bad.
with my mouth while gesturing wildly in a thumbs down motion.
Yeah, there are very few ways to do Dracula right, and very many ways to do it wrong, as we have seen in all of the Dracula movies.
You know, I mean, that's the thing. Really, to do anything interesting with Dracula, you really have to put him in a different environment than you're used to, which is why I'm kind of interested in... Well, and I mean, that's certainly not a recipe for success, because
no.
then you can
Dracula
do like...
2000?
Dracula 3000?
Was it 3000?
I don't know, but I know... Well, no, I'm pretty sure there was both a Dracula 2000 and then a Dracula 3000 to put him into a far-flung future. But, no, sci-fi Dracula's no good. I understand the Dracula program that was on TV recently kind of cast him as sort of a Nikola Tesla figure. And,
Really?
yeah, so, I mean, that was kind of different anyway. And a lot of people were saying, this is pretty great. It was Dracula as essentially Nikola Tesla.
Why didn't they just make a show about Nikola Tesla?
Fighting against, fighting against fossil fuel industrialists.
Like that Edison.
That son of a bitch.
Oh, they should just make that show.
I just want everyone at home to know, in case you're keeping score. You may have noticed that Jake and I don't always, and haven't for some time, had a hero of the week or monster of the week. But I want you to know that if we don't mention monster of the week at the very least, you can assume it's Thomas Edison.
Yeah. Just assume when we don't say, it's Thomas Edison.
It's Thomas Edison again this week.
And you can fill in with pretty much any terrible thing you can think of. You probably did it.
Probably trace it back to Thomas Edison at some point.
I feel like, because when I lived...
Did he steal people's ideas? Yep.
Yeah, oh yeah. Absolutely.
All over.
Did he stop people from being successful that could have had brilliant products?
Yep. Sure
absolutely. Did. Absolutely.
Did he file fraudulent patent claims for things that he knew for a fact that somebody else had made, but because he was Thomas Edison, he was able to use his clout as an industrial...
Of course he did.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. No, I feel kind of dirty. Actually, my dad was there. My dad... Greenfield Village, downstate. That was always a big, like, school trip. And, I remember, well, it was cool overall, but I remember, like, there was, like, the Edison, like, his, laboratory, and stuff like that. Or is the Edison laboratory? No, I think that's in New York, isn't it?
Well, he has the Menlo Park laboratory,
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so, yeah, I remember going there. It was cool. There was a blacksmith. That was awesome. I remember that. Oh, my dad says there are 58 invertebrate. Is that a rhyme, or are you saying that's how many vertebrae people? I do not.
I don't understand what you're saying, sir.
I don't understand the question.
But, yeah.
So let's see. Kira Kennedy, the hipster ninja, just put out a new Lost in Stereo. Actually, about the album Lost in Stereo. I think it was, or Lost in something.
Reviewception.
Yeah. Kira Kennedy.
No. See, we'll review his review.
Oh shit!
And then it'll be a review-ception.
Or we'll get a hold of the band that did the album and have them review Kira's review of their album. Perfect. But yeah, so he's got a new review up. Check that out. He does Lost in Stereo is about Canadian music primarily. So these are bands I've never even heard of. Like, no offense, I don't want to sound, what do you call it, xenophobic? Or
I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah, I know what you mean. You don't want to seem like you have something against Canada, or you're not aware of things that aren't inherently American. But let's be honest, the American music scene is just globally larger than the Canadian music scene.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so boring. Canadian music. It just put me right to sleep.
But the review isn't, and it's very interesting. So
Yes.
check that out.
Yes.
Also, obviously, if you're not watching it, you're a dummy, but the Short Council doing some Doctor Who.
And as
Peter Capaldi's getting some fucking backlash lately.
Don't you really?
Yeah.
Really, he's getting some
People
backlash.
are not.
Well, I've seen
warming up to him.
a couple articles talking about how people can't hear him or they can't understand what he's saying.
Are those the kind of people that are like, if anyone has an accent, I need subtitles on the screen?
Some of them, I'm sure.
Just closed caption that shit.
But but here's the thing. I don't know what exactly it is. I think it's just like possibly just the vocal tone that his voice falls under, and it gets lost sometimes. I don't know. I do feel like BBC might be having some audio mixing issues going on right now. Because I do sort of see what they're saying, and they're saying like some audio experts came in and were kind of analyzing
like their
all
mix
this.
down was wrong.
Yeah, and they were basically saying that it's not just the accent that people are having trouble with. It's the tone. It's not in a good audible range or whatever for some reason. So a lot of people are turning up their TVs and they don't like that, especially crotchety old British people.
Well, there are certain shows where you're like watching it and it's like, and you crank it up.
Yeah.
And then the commercial
Bop
comes on.
bop 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 bop.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fuck that. I also would like to point out that just like we have Americans in this country who look at President Barack Obama and say, "Not my president," there is some dyed-in-the-wool Englishman
who say, "Not my doctor."
A Scotsman. Not my doctor, no. no, I'm
not
afraid.
Not their doctor, no. Not their Doctor Who.
Not my doctor. No.
There's a Who's on First waiting to happen.
No.
Not my doctor, no. No, not Doctor No.
Doctor Who.
Who?
Yeah. Yeah, da. But I was gonna say, I think he's still doing a fantastic job and kind of bringing some fresh stuff to the table. We talk about it a fair amount on the Short Council. If you're a fan of Doctor Who and you're not watching the Short Council,
peanutbutterdisaster.com.
Boy, are you a fool? And time will prove it.
Yeah.
Time travel with the Doctor.
Boom.
Oh, see how we turn that around on you? Now you're double the fool.
Boom.
But
everybody plays the fool.
But the thing about it is that this is a totally different Doctor than a lot of people are accustomed to. I can imagine a lot of
the last
young
three
teen.
ones were just young,
I'd like to imagine that there's some young teenage girls who kind of grew up with the new Doctor Who, like from the age 13 or something like that. And now they're just getting into college, and all of a sudden the Doctor's some I don't know what kind of word they would use. What's the British equivalent of grody? Tom? Sorry, no, that only works on the edited program.
Oof, I'll think about it.
Think it over.
I feel like I've watched enough British television to know what that is, but I can't think of it.
Mm-hmm.
But so we have that, and then also I'm working on my new show. I have been procrastinating really hard, but I actually have a handle on it this time. So I'm doing a show for my Jake Salvage persona called VHXS, and if you're not aware, I have been collecting VHS tapes like crazy. Like, I find them for super cheap at, like, thrift stores and garage sales and stuff. But I'm trying to find, like, the kind of shit that's not going to be on DVD, or if it is, you know, it's harder to find, or even different cuts on VHS. Like, I have the original trilogy on VHS, which is actually technically the closest you can get to the original cuts without all that CGI bullshit. Somebody tried to argue... Okay, let's
I could argue, but I won't.
Yeah, somebody said there was a DVD release in the 90s, which doesn't sound right to me.
There was a DVD release in the 90s, but that was with
I mean, I know there was a VHS.
It was with the new special effects.
Yeah. Somebody told me there was a DVD release at some point, and I don't remember DVDs being like extra popular until like after 2000.
The highest quality version, I am led to believe anyway, the highest quality version of Star Wars that exists in its original theatrical format is a Laserdisc rip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, you know what? I'll bring this up so my dad can hear it, but my grandparents have Laserdisc.
Ooh.
And they may possibly have the Star Wars Laserdisc.
That'd be crazy.
So, Dad, we know you're watching the show. This is the
first time
we
there was someone we knew who was watching the show was probably really watching the show. But
yeah, if they still have that Laserdisc player, and they're not doing anything with it,
he wants it.
You know,
he wants it.
Just saying.
Just throwing it out.
I know for a fact, because I remember watching them when I was little. They had a bunch of them, and I know for a fact they have Swamp Thing with Adrienne Barbeau, the Muppet movie, and a bunch of James Bond movies. Like a whole bunch. Because my grandpa's super into James Bond. Loves James Bond. I love James Bond. Does not like the Daniel Craig James Bond, though.
Really?
Huge James Bond fan. Just does not like it. Too serious, he says. Well, I understand. Like, you know, goofy gadgets and wooing women and, you know, one-liners. Like, when you take that away and then it's like, oh, it's serious now. It's like, oh, you've just basically made the Bourne, you know.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's the thing. Is
I can
that
see it.
there's a pressure to try to remake everything into whatever's popular at the time.
Yeah.
But then it's like, but wait, now it's not the thing that thing was. So then at some point in the future, they're going to reboot James Bond in a more lighthearted way, and it's going to be like, oh, we're going right back to the source material. We're going back to the 1960s. We're going back to like a Roger Moore kind of, you know. Then they're just going to skip over Sean Connery entirely, like a Roger Moore era, you know, James Bond.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Like every generation. There's always like the last generation's like no, like most of the time if you ask somebody who the best James Bond was, they'll usually say Sean Connery, and he really is like the iconic James Bond. But you know, you have to be like, okay, but really, like you have to be like, beyond Sean Connery, who is your favorite Bond? And if somebody says Peter Sellers, then you give them a high five, because even though they're wrong, they really dug that one out. So
I really like just editorial.
Casino Royale.
Yeah. Just an editorial here.
Okay, go ahead.
I really like Timothy Dalton Bond.
Yeah,
he's only due.
That's just because you love Timothy Dalton and fucking.
No, I'll have you know that I was a big fan of License to Kill and Living Daylights before I ever saw Hot Fuzz.
Okay.
Which has him obviously as like just the best villain.
Yeah.
Just the best.
That's fair. No, Brosnan probably. I don't know. Like, he was the one I grew up with. I love GoldenEye. Yeah, he seemed slick enough. I feel like. Yeah, like he sold it, I feel like.
You know who some people say, because they're hipsters and they feel like they need to have the most obscure answer that makes sense?
What's that?
George Lazenby.
Oh, yeah.
Nope. That's an incorrect answer.
That's a MacGuffin answer. That's a bullshit answer.
The real fans all like George Lazenby.
David Niven was Bond. Was that in Casino Royale? Because I know they made Casino Royale.
Yeah.
That was the first movie that came out.
And it was as like a parody spoof sort of
yeah,
thing.
it was a joke. I remember seeing that. I think it was on like Netflix or something, and I was like, I watched like the first 20 minutes.
I suspect David Niven and Peter Sellers are secretly the same person.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. Well, have you ever seen them both at the same place at the same time?
Oh,
yes.
Shit.
The answer is you have.
I like going back and seeing the remakes of older, because we talk so much, especially on this show, because we're talking about like news of they're rebooting Spider-Man 10 years later or whatever. It's like it's interesting to go back further. Like I have the Blob, the original The Blob, and the remake on VHS. I have I've seen both Mists, or the Fog. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I've seen the Carpenter Fog and the remake, and yeah, there's just a bunch of them that like you don't really think about, because was there just an era where remakes were actually good? Like The Thing, or there I seem.
Well, I mean, the thing is that it was still kind of like I guess remakes were never a fresh idea, because there was a Wizard of Oz movie before the Wizard of Oz that everyone knows and talks about. So I mean, they were doing remakes and reboots all the way back then. There were, like, I guess I've also heard the statistic that there were like 9 Frankenstein movies before Universal's Frankenstein.
Yeah. Or even if you look at like Nosferatu.
Well, I mean, that partially had to do, I think, with like, stories that everybody could get, and people was like, well, everyone's had a Dr. Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, it's a hot read. It's a gothic romance,
Out of the present.
And sure, do you think anyone ever spoke that way, like, really?
Just like super fast talking. There's a really funny SNL sketch that has who's
Katy
the poster?
Perry, is it?
No, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Zooey Deschanel.
Yeah, it has her, and it's like 2 of the SNL actors doing like a hey doll, you're something, they're just mixing metaphors like crazy, like just coming back, and she's just sitting there like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I can't do it.
She's got a moxie,
Yeah.
It's
funny because you hear the audience, and I don't think they get it, but it was
sort of an old-fashioned sort of skit. I don't know.
Where people are just like railing off. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
So what do we got in the news to talk about this week, Jacob?
All right, and don't think that we forgot about your question, Trevor's mom.
No, we got it. We'll come
it's
back
here.
to it.
We will come back to it. I'm actually pulling that up.
I got it on my phone.
Oh,
it's right here on my phone. Totally has it.
Also, my dad says Gene from Firefly just called and wanted to know if he could have his hat back.
He cannot.
Nope. All right.
He also cannot have Vera back. He traded it. He made his choice. Now he has to live with the consequences.
I still haven't watched Firefly.
You're dumb. You're dumb. You're so dumb.
I'm going to. I will.
I can't hear the words coming out of your mouth. There's just dumb poop. Poop, 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 poop falling out of your mouth.
Trev, I mean, someday I'll just sit down and watch the entire series, because there really weren't that many episodes.
Twist on a knife.
Oh man, so
that's okay. I hope your PG-13 Deadpool works out.
Oh, god damn it! Just. All right, so
we're friends, I swear.
Yeah. Speaking of movie news, what's the biggest movie that's coming out in like 15 years? When is this coming out? I don't even know.
Next year.
Next year, really?
Yeah.
Good God.
2015, baby.
Star Wars Episode 7. Apparently, David Fincher was approached for it, and David Fincher said, "I don't want to do it because my first instinct will be, I want to do Empire Strikes Back," and they'll be like, "No,
you got to do the one with all the creatures."
That's the quote that he
that's his direct quote. I assume he's talking about Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, like, with the Ewoks,
which is the most
really,
toyetic
like, creatures in the first
toyetic. By the way, how do you feel about the word toyetic? Not to super tangent here.
To be fair, Star Wars was the first movie that did that, so...
Mm-hmm.
Or the first movie series. I mean, uh, if you don't know, George Lucas basically started toy tie-ins. Like, we wouldn't have, there's a huge resurgence. Actually, Trevor and I both got the Loot Crate, and it was pretty cool. But they have, like, Alien action figures that are, like, old school, and, people get, like, throwback action figures now, and you can get, like, pretty much any popular, like, show or movie or video game you can get an action figure for, or you can get merchandise, and that all started with Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
George Lucas was like, I'll make this movie with your money, but I get all of the merchandising rights. That's part of the reason why Lucas is so rich now. I mean, he sold Star Wars for $1 bajillion.
Yeah, and at the time, his backers were like, merchandising rights, hardy har har har.
Yeah.
What kind of money are you gonna make from that?
And he made $1 bajillion.
He made all of the money.
He made all the money, so that's where it comes from.
If you ever found in your life that you didn't have enough money, that's why George Lucas took it.
Because he just hoovered it all up. But, yeah, so David Fincher says, no, I can't do the Dark movie. Which, he made Fight Club. He made another movie that I can't...
He doesn't... He's kind of a dark guy.
Yeah, he makes darker... I mean, Fight Club kind of sums up his whole directorial, like, film style, So, you're talking about... and that's the other thing. I don't think they'd let him write it either. I feel like the problem with Episode 7... I'm sure 1 million directors were approached for that.
You know what's weird?
What's that?
It seems like the one lesson Hollywood seems capable of learning is that it's very dangerous to put one person in charge of multiple aspects of how the movie gets made. Like, the most people will like starring and directing, or starring and producing, or writing and producing, but it's very rare for someone like to be like starring, acting, writing, directing, whatever.
I mean, there's
writing and directing is really hard to put together, just because that's like control over what the content of the movie is and how it's supposed to be executed on screen.
See, I would argue that. Well, sometimes, like, obviously...
I blame Zardoz, by the way.
Zardoz.
John Borman, you were everything in that movie.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you could argue against that with, like, obviously the episodes 1 through 3. Lucas wrote it, he directed it, but then Tarantino, you have. And I cannot picture a movie that he both wrote and directed that was bad. I mean, obviously you can, but you understand what I'm saying. Like, he's done a pretty bang-up job of that, even though you could argue that most of his writing is basically just plagiarism.
Stealing.
Yeah. I saw this thing in a movie, and I wanted it in my movie, so I put it there.
It was pretty great, so I took it.
Has Tarantino ever been sued for that?
You would think.
Right?
Especially after he got all Stu happy about the Hateful Eight. You think that someone would be like, okay, well, how about this? Like the writer of City on Fire, where Tarantino stole the famous Mexican standoff scene from the end of Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
City on Fire. It was based on
yeah.
City on Fire. Charlie Unfat, I want to say, was in that picture.
Was that a...
Am I old-fashioned because I still call movies sometimes pictures?
The old picture show.
I'm old-fashioned.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like there is good there, but yeah, there are some things that I feel like maybe are better if someone else writes it, because there are strong directors and there are strong writers. But I agree that it's hard to find a good director writer or actor. Like, Tarantino always puts himself in his own movies. Mostly because he's a dick, but, whatever. But yeah, so episode 7's coming out next year. I can't believe that, man.
The other interesting thing Fincher said about the movie was how he said he interprets Star Wars as a story of two slaves, C-3PO and R2-D2, following around their various masters and witnessing the folly of man. Like, that's such a David Fincher way of interpreting Star Wars, but...
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I feel like he must have seen episodes 1 through 3. Because, they're in there, too. They're in all 6 movies.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it is kind of like, C-3PO is created by Anakin, which also doesn't make sense because he looks like every other protocol droid.
Mm-hmm.
And then R2-D2 is just a, R2 unit.
Standard astromech, yeah.
Yeah, but then he falls in with everything, and they forget everything between episodes 3 and 4.
C-3PO, human-cyborg relations.
Yeah.
Cracked recently pointed out that it would appear that they taught robots how to feel pain in between episodes 3 and 4, which is really weird because it almost seems like surely it would have been a deliberate decision, and in my mind personally, the only reason to explain it away, if not as a deliberate decision, is just that the movie creators were all soft and didn't want to make anything that looked bad or but in the original trilogy you have robots who are being tortured. Mm-hmm. And you have robots who are like C-3PO is always panicking when he's about to be dismembered or possibly discombobulated. But in episode 2, he has his whole his body torn apart and thrown around and everything, and he reacts really blasé to the whole thing. Aside from making puns, line. Yeah, I'm beside myself. Oh.
Yeah. Well, they had the battle droids too, and to add in the goofy factor when they got torn apart, it was like, oh
no. So it would seem that at some point between episodes 3 and episodes 4, they made the robots capable of feeling pain. As if to punish all of the robots for having been a robot army in the prequel trilogy, and
there was a
crack video, After Hours, I believe.
After Hours is really good. I love that show.
But
check that out.
Yeah, check that out.
Recommendation of the week: check out After Hours on Cracked. Very nicely written. It's got some good theories on popular culture. They even have a Disney playlist where it's all just them talking about Disney movies. Mm-hmm. Whole playlist on YouTube.
Ladies.
But my dad says Thomas Edison did a Frankenstein movie. That is correct. I knew about that. And he said, did I mention that they are hiring extras in Lansing for the next Batman, which is Batman vs.
Superman.
They're doing a lot of their filming in Michigan. Michigan has finally, for years, they've been lowering taxes on how much it costs, or just lowering costs in general on how much it is to make movies, or to shoot movies in Michigan. And apparently it's paying off. Well, they did The Dark Knight, right? Part of that was filmed in...
I believe so.
No. It was Dark Knight Rises.
Yes.
Dark Knight Rises was filmed mostly in Detroit. Because I know for the first one, I think the second one was Chicago.
Yeah.
Right?
The first one too, I think.
Yeah.
1 and 2 was partially in Chicago.
But they wanted to show that it was like a metropolis, so they
And also crumbling.
Yeah. A crumbling metropolis. Oh, I read a Toy Vonino joke last night.
Oh?
If you're not familiar, we live in the UP,
mm-hmm.
The Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and there's a lot of Finlanders up here. I'm actually mostly Finnish.
It's a regional cultural joke.
Yeah, Toy Vonino is they're two guys that end up in a lot of jokes because they're dummies.
They're two Finnish characters who are idiots who basically they're dumb Finlander jokes.
Yeah.
In the tradition of dumb Polak jokes or something, which is probably
a lot
more
of them
common.
A lot of them are copy pasted, but I feel like there are some that are regional. But one of them is Toy Vonino drive down to Detroit, and they get on the highway and they see a sign that says Detroit left, so they turn around.
Oh, because it wasn't there. You guys get it?
Oh. Dad says J&TRE could photobomb Ben Affleck's movie. Listen, if I had the money to drive down there and be there for a while for to be an extra, hell yeah, I would do that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In a heartbeat.
And speaking of Batman versus Superman, we
yeah.
also have some news concerning that. Apparently, there were some leaks of some photos of protesters.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so you're thinking, wait, you mean people are protesting the filming of this movie? No. It seems instead, well, unless maybe they're literally protesting the way that the first movie ended, that's you know, I guess that's possible, but no. In actuality, they are protesting Superman in the upcoming movie with signs that say things like, Earth is for humans, return to sender, thanks for the quote-unquote help, stuff like that. One of the signs somebody's holding depicts the Superman symbol shape, but with a swastika in it.
Oh, I get it.
So basically,
They're saying that he's Hitler.
Right. So
well, isn't that weird? Think about this. This is like crazy logic, like the way that because it's well known, at least in comic book circles, that Siegel and Schuster made Superman based on the Ubermensch.
Mm-hmm.
Like Man and Superman. Like that's where they came up with the idea for Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big part of like the eugenics movement in World War II for the Nazis.
Right. To make an Ubermensch.
Even though, you know, it's weird just then because Superman ends up fighting Nazis in the comic books in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like a character that was born of the same thing saying that Nazis are bad.
Right, you get this symbol of Nazi superiority who is subverted by two Jewish comic book artists and then uses it to combat the Nazis in their fiction.
Yeah, and
sweet.
now
Totally sweet, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I want to high five their ghosts.
Yeah, absolutely,
like, you know?
Absolutely. There's a really good book recommendation of the week. The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Excellent book. I'm trying to think of who wrote that.
Michael Chabon.
Yeah, that guy. I'm sad that
I'm the guy who always remembers people's names.
Yeah, and I'm the guy that doesn't.
So these differences and more.
But yeah, that's a really good book. It's fictional. Like the characters make a fictional comic book character, but it's like historical fiction. So it's set during the big comic book boom and World War II and into the '60s. Like, but yeah, they kind of address those kinds of issues too, because the two characters that make the fictional, Cavalier and Clay, they're like they create the character that's basically Superman. They're both Jewish kids. One of them goes to fight in World War II. It kind of mirrors the whole sentiment there. Yeah, but yeah. So having somebody hold a sign with Superman with a swastika on his chest is kind of weird.
Yeah,
when you think of it in context.
But yeah, so supposedly these protesters are protesting Superman as a figure, like, oh, we don't need this Superman, aliens go home, that kind of like anti-Superman sentiment that I think would be a legitimate thing that would exist in this world.
Right. Well,
Superman
when people are comparing Obama to Hitler and shit like that, like obviously nobody's gonna pull punches when it comes to some superhuman alien superhuman,
yeah.
Yeah. Which is fucked up. Like, why? If you were worried that Superman was such a fuck up, why would you protest against him?
Because some people...
Oops, I accidentally heat visioned all of you to death.
Because some people think
like, obviously he's not going to do that.
Protesting can fix anything. Like, these are the same people who think you could have, well, I guess forget it. Forget it. Just a brief editorial here. Something that happened to me today. In the chat. Hey, Nikki. Hey. Something that happened to me today. Just wanted to mention. I was at home earlier today, and there was a knock on my door, and I said, "Come in," and they didn't. And that's usually my cue that it's someone who does not know me who wants to talk to me about something. So I'm walking up and kind of dreading it. And I open up the door, and it's 2 people, and it's like, oh, they're here to do maybe politics stuff. You know, I'm not really, you know, up on the current races or anything. But I asked, you know, so hey, what's going on? And she said, oh, we here on behalf of I don't even remember the candidate's name. Okay, here's like I'm so like Dick Sargent. We'll call him Dick Sargent.
Dick Sargent.
That wasn't it, but he's running for the House of Representatives, and I'm thinking, okay, get to the point. And they say, and he's running against incumbent Dan Benechek. Now, if you're not from Upper Michigan, if you're not from the Michigan region, you may not know who Dan Benechek is. But I assured the ladies that I would vote for a snake if it was running against Dan Benechek. So I took their literature happily and let them know that their candidate would have my support in the fall. Because no, I won't get into why, because we're not a political show.
Well, but instead of voting for whoever else, just do a write-in vot.
Do a write-in
for
vote?
Snake Or.
Snake Or. The Snake Man.
Or.
He Dragon or Snake Lord Komodo.
Snake Lord
Komodo.
There you go.
Who's promised on the campaign trail to kill even more interlopers. Yeah, I'd vote for Snake Lord Komodo.
Just write it in.
That's
man.
what I wish I had thought of that when I said I'd vote for villainous Snake Lord Komodo over Dan Benechek.
Do that, man. Like, just write it in.
I'm gonna stand outside the polling booth that day with a big sign, Komodo, Snake Lord Komodo for fucking Senate.
Do you think there's ever
Congress?
gonna be like auto voting, like where it's like anybody but this person, like whoever's the most popular, like it just defaults, where people are just like, I don't care as long as it's not this person, because that's basically what it. I mean, yeah, we don't want to get into politics, but
yeah.
You know, I feel like that's what it is.
I want to take
most
this
of the time.
opportunity because I know literally everybody in the existing universe watches this program, so obviously Dan's watching, and I want you to know, fuck you, Dan. You piece of shit, get out of here! You do not have my vote, and I don't want you watching my show. Get out of here! All right.
My dad says Superman should Dr. Manhattan all those protesters, but he's too nice.
Yeah. That's the funny thing is that
leave.
Is that in their minds, you know, and then I wonder, by the way, is that like how political is that, where, you know, basically you have this person who would never hurt these people who are protesting against him and saying all kinds of vile crap and calling him a Nazi and everything, but you know all the Superman protesters are thinking to themselves like, oh, he's a menace, you know, he's gonna, let's protest and then we'll hope that he'll overreact and he'll show his true colors to everybody, and then just, you know.
Well, Superman's a good guy. He's got morals to uphold. He's not gonna, you know, I'm sure he'll get swarmed and upset and confused. I mean, you know.
Like, what if Superman tried to impose super care on America? And
wasn't there?
Listen, I'm not going to have a Kryptonian death panel deciding whether I get the treatment I need.
Oh God! Wasn't there? No, that was Superman for the Quest for Peace.
Yes.
Where he did exactly that. I'm gonna make sure no one has nukes, and that's my decision and no one else's. Yeah. Oh God. Ugh. There's a movie. That's a movie. More movie news. William Shatner admits he was contacted about Star Trek 3. I love the next line because you know exactly what it is. Can anyone guess? I'll give you a couple seconds.
What would William Shatner say to being asked if he'd like to be in Star Trek 3?
That also goes along with what would William Shatner say if he was asked to do anything.
I'll give you a hint. What he didn't say is, sorry, I'm too busy with my Priceline negotiator commercials to...
I'm too busy re-recording all of the Tech War on tape. No,
I'll give you a hint. It wasn't, no thank you, I would like to cease my ongoing conflict with Leonard Nimoy.
No, he said, I'd love to do it. Because of course he would.
I mean, I've heard some stories and quotes about this, and supposedly he did go on to say that, you know, if the material's right, if it's strong, I mean, I don't want to go back in and do some kind of flimsy bullshit, basically, is what he said.
Well, see...
And, you know, at least he threw that in as a caveat, like, you know...
But the problem is it'd be so convoluted by this point anyways.
You're correct. There's no really good reason to bring Shatner back as Kirk in this. Yeah. Unless he's going to be playing a non-Kirk character, which I guess sort of works, but then that's still pretty stupid.
Yeah, because Spock came back and was like, hey, you gotta change time. And then stayed there long enough to be in the next movie. So how would they even run into Kirk?
Well,
are they going to be, like, is the new cinematic
What if like
Enterprise?
Spock's like, you know, in some room on New Vulcan colony or whatever, and then like he's sleeping and he wakes up out of a start after having visions of his time aboard the Enterprise, and then like Jim standing over him, you know, Captain Kirk, fucking William Shatner, and he's like, we have to go back to the future, and it's like, wait, what?
And then they get into the
DeLorean, and then they take off.
And they go there, and Spuds McKenzie is there, and they're all drinking beers and having a good time playing Nintendo and watching fucking...
They're drinking Bud Ice. No, not if Spuds is there.
Whatever happened to beer dogs, man?
I don't know. That's a question. It's the first question I feel like I'm not qualified to answer here on J&TRE Review Everything's. What happened to beer dogs?
Hold on. My dad says, I would love to hear Shatner read the song Thrift Shop. You know, I assume that it exists. If it's not him, it's probably somebody famous. I swear I've heard that.
You know, the last thing I actually saw Shatner in, I think, was obviously the Priceline Negotiator commercials, but besides that was a public service thing for not having explosive turkey fryers,
Yeah.
where he's looking for a moisture taster.
And then it was just on fire.
Gone. Yeah. He has the dingle dangle. He's got the turkey. He's looking for a moisture taster your turkey. Okay, so obviously he was drawn to the fryer.
And then he got his ass fried.
Happens to the best of us.
So shitty.
Happened to Kirk.
Yeah.
Happened to Kirk. How's it not going to happen to you?
Yeah.
Think it over. Phyllis Peterson writes, this is for both of you. Think of all the movies you have ever seen. Now, hold on. It'll take me a little bit. I got to think of all the movies I've ever seen.
Actually, I already thought of the answer to this. I was thinking the whole time. Boom!
Now, you could have any 5 on DVD and keep them for future viewing. Show them to your children when you are in... Show them to children when you are in need of a great pick-me-up or in need of watching those few special movies that always leave you feeling happy, content, or that awe. Now, that is a great movie. I'm like reading this like an asshole.
Read it right!
Read it right! Well, if it was anyone else, my mom might point out that this is essentially one giant run-on sentence. But since it's my mom, this is fine. Mom.
That's alright. I write run-on sentences like crazy.
Or in need of some watching those few special movies that always leave you feeling happy, content, or with that, oh, now that's a great movie feeling. What 5 movies would you want to have?
I pretty much already got it. Fight Club, Clerks, Highlander, I think High Fidelity, and probably Big Fish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, that could change, but like off the top of my head, of the movies that I enjoy, yeah, those are all like Clerks is a standard. I watch that whenever. Same with Fight Club. Highlander is all I could watch that like a million times.
Mm-hmm.
Love that movie. Actually, I changed Big Fish to Hudson Hawk.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I will take up the mantle on Big Fish. That's always sort of a tearjerker for me, kind of a feels movie.
I know every time.
It's a
every
feels
time.
movie.
If I'll be honest, if I don't cry, I'm holding them back, holding back the tears.
If I guess that's like I'd say my best. I want to go kind of a little bit by genre here, a little bit, just so I have some variety in the types of movies I'm going to be going with here. So yeah, for my feels movie, it's Big Fish.
Okay.
For my horror movie, it's John Carpenter's The Thing.
That is classic.
For my comedy movie, that's so tough because it could easily be Ghostbusters, but I'm gonna have to go with Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz is just like, it's picture perfect for me. It gets better every time I fucking watch it. For action, it's gonna have to be, and this is tough because there's some amazing ones, but I'm gonna go with RoboCop.
I could feel it. I could feel it coming.
You could feel the RoboCop coming.
I could cut the RoboCop in the air with a knife.
And gosh, my kind of wow movie, I guess I'm gonna have to probably pick Inception. I think I could probably watch Inception a lot, and it's a kind of a reminder of story writing and structure.
There's
and how
so
to
much
put together
minutia
a
in that
story.
movie too.
There's so much to pull out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my 5.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. You had some pretty good ones too.
Pretty good.
You had some pretty good ones.
I don't know. It'd be tough to live with just 5 movies, though.
Oh gosh.
Actually, there's a really good show, also on the internet. I can't. Well, we already recommended a bunch of shit, but if you get it, open up another tab.
Just one more
Tab, and pull up Welcome to the Basement. It's on a channel on YouTube. What is the name of their production company? I can't remember. But they do movies. They do movie reviews, but it's like they surprise each other with a movie they haven't seen and they watch it and they talk about it and all that. It's a little more than like just riffing on the movie. They riff on the movie, but they also have a lot of like movie knowledge. Like, admittedly more movie knowledge than I have, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to hear them talk about movies I've never even heard of.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to know a lot about mainstream movies, but I feel like my blind spot is really like pre-80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, aside from like the main movies,
Mm-hmm.
and I know influences like Hitchcock and Wells and everything, but I mean, they really like know the stuff, and they watch a lot of
Some
movies.
nerds.
Yeah. Oh yeah, just really nerdy. But they recommended taking the 5-day challenge, which is where you find a movie, and then I think it's like one of your favorite movies, or I can't remember specifically what it was, but it was a movie, and you watch it each day for 5 days. And then you basically like talk about your experience. Like, was it terrible to watch the same movie for 5 days? Did you like notice things that you didn't notice before? Like, did you realize different things about it? It's just an overall experience. And I haven't done it yet, but I was thinking about doing it because I think that would be pretty cool, actually, to just try it.
So would you want to do it with a movie that's actually one of your faves, or would you like to do it with like maybe a movie you like,
I don't know. That would be tough.
I was thinking just now, I'd kind of like to maybe do that with Iron Man 3.
You think
Maybe. Here's the thing. Maybe I was unfair to Iron Man 3. I know it sounds crazy.
Well, no, okay. I don't want to fight with you about this, but I feel like that's kind of how I felt about
Man of Steel.
Man of Steel. Like, I don't, like, over time, just having seen it again outside of the theater, and really listening to how people take it, like, I don't really have a problem fundamentally with it, because I saw it in the movie theater and I thought it was pretty good, but I feel like I understand more why people don't like it.
Okay.
So I don't really want to defend it that much.
Sure.
I mean, I'll say, like, I really liked the movie, but, if somebody's like, well, no, it was shit, it's like, well, I can see why you thought it was shit. Like, I can't really sit here and defend it anymore.
Sure.
Really.
And let me go on to say that I don't I don't really think I was wrong, but
Yeah, I don't think I was wrong either. I mean, it's obviously an opinion.
right.
And,
Well,
and we made our case about it, too.
right, and I felt like we made a pretty compelling case about how the movie seemed to be ashamed of its own source material, how it had no confidence in the weirdness of its own source material, that it took like a bizarre, different way out instead of showing what could have been, one of the most mystical sort of characters yet to appear in the universe, and instead they changed things around so they wouldn't have to worry about that.
And admittedly, going back, like the character development, a lot of I think we even said that in our review, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole review wasn't, Superman's great, everyone's butts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there were plenty of times where we were like, yeah, this was really fucking stupid. And I think probably the worst for me, which I will agree with anybody that is the worst part of the movie, is the relationship between Clark Kent and Lois Lane.
Just so you know, I was just talking about Iron Man 3.
Oh.
Isn't that funny, by the way? No, like I really felt like Iron Man 3, the people who made it were ashamed of the source material. They were trying to get it away from being Iron Man.
We talked about
that, right?
Review,
but that's what I mean. I don't think I was wrong in that assessment. In fact, it feels really right.
You know what we should do?
What?
We should do. And if you've watched up to the 50-minute mark, which actually it just flipped over to 50 minutes, in this J&TRE Review Everything Live episode, here's a good idea for J&TRE Review Everything.
Mm-hmm.
What if we review, and this might sound meta, but I feel like we could pull it off without it being too obnoxious. What if we review our reviews of Iron Man 3 and Man of Steel together? In one review. Because I feel like a lot of the things we were saying about one movie is things that we were defending in the other. So it might be interesting to kind of look into that and kind of... Because I'm not afraid to be wrong. I want to say that right now. I feel like there are a lot of things in movies... Like, when we review things, that's just our opinion, man. Like, nobody's held to... I'm not going to say anybody's stupid for thinking otherwise. I mean, I'm not particularly judgy when it comes to movies. I can dislike something, but I'm not going to dislike someone or say that they're wrong for liking something.
Right. No, I see what you're saying too a little bit. I think that those were very divisive superhero movies that came out in and around the same time.
Even when we're talking about the episodes that we did, like, those are the two that always stand out where it's like, oh, we were like completely against the popular opinion at the time. Because a lot of people, both were kind of polarizing. I know Man of Steel was
I felt like the edge was more with people that Iron Man 3 was great and that Superman was bad, and that was like that's where the edge was going on both of those.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people who felt otherwise in both cases. Jake and I ended up being on. So I mean, that's interesting.
And we've put distance between those reviews and the release of the movies as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, like, a lot of people are holding on to the whole Man of Steel thing. Still,
gotta let it go.
Oh, that was that close.
It's my Alamo.
Let's see. My dad's list is Joe's Apartment, Highlander, Hudson Hawk, Kung Fu Hustle, and Ghostbusters.
It's not a bad list.
That's not bad. Kung Fu Hustle.
Joe's Apartment is like the anomaly for me. Like, what? I don't understand why that one's on that list. Joe's Apartment?
I haven't seen that movie in years, so
maybe it was like really subversive and interesting.
Well, it had
Jerry O'Connell.
Yeah, Jerry O'Connell was in that.
Well, he was in Sliders, and that was a subversive.
Slidums.
That was a subversive program, asking brave questions like, "What if ladies were in charge of men?"
What?
The whole thing was, there was the world where they went to where there was essentially a matriarchy, and
let's see. So this is a quick one. Tetris movie is being made.
Well, that's a joke.
That's not a joke. That's actually, we're on ArsTechnica.com right here, and the article says, not a joke, a Tetris movie is being made. Yeah, well, they're making a Ouija board movie, which we've known for years. I think the Speak and Spell and Stretch Armstrong movies have already been picked up. Though I don't know if they're going to be, actually made. The Ouija board movie is going to be made.
There was a long time ago a blog website that Jake and I were burgeoning authors on. I didn't go very far. I made maybe 3 posts and stopped doing it. But it was called Vented Rage.
I remember that.
.com. And I remember writing an article at one point about upcoming movies that I couldn't believe were going to be movies. Including one of them was Ouija, of course, because, and I remember it was just kind of oh, of course, yeah, no, I mean, when were you going to have all these girls, giggling and so forth around the Ouija board, and then, I didn't move you, so it's going to be lots of that. But then the more ridiculous one to me was Monopoly. And the fact, not only that, but the leaked concept for the Monopoly
Jack Black,
movie.
Right?
I don't know if it had Jack Black, but
I'm pretty sure it was Jack
But
Black.
the pretense was that this guy who was better at Monopoly than he was at life goes to bed but wakes up one morning and everyone's using Monopoly money, and it turns out he's been magically transported into Monopoly world.
Oh God!
And he's got to stop the evil Parker brothers from completing some real estate scam with the power of friendship.
That's every part of that sounds wrong.
Well, Jake, your senses serve you well.
It's wrong. It's all wrong. Yeah.
And it was going to be directed by Ridley Scott.
My dad says they did that with Witchboard, which was a really awful flick. So there was a movie that didn't have the license to Ouija.
It was called Witchboard.
It was called Witchboard. I need to know more about this movie.
Oh, was it an asylum film? Because that would make sense.
Oh my God. Ugh. But yeah. We got 5 minutes left. So I'll talk about Gotham briefly. You still have to watch it. I'm not going to give a lot of spoilers. I watched the first 2 episodes. If you've seen them, it's not a terrible show. We've been railing on the premise for a really long time, and I still stand by the reason we were railing on it, which is that it's really hard to do a show about Batman without Batman. Mm-hmm. Batman without Batman. So the Batman in this case is basically a generic Fox detective.
Okay.
Later on Fox, a detective that does a thing.
Yeah, I figured that.
It's basically instead of, he's a psychic detective, or he's a detective that's immortal, it's
he's a detective in Gotham City.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is.
Oh.
So they're pulling a lot of the bullshit that I hated from S.H.I.E.L.D., where they hinted at a lot of things, if you're a nerd, you'll get this. Mm-hmm. And it's stop, just show me the thing. And so far, they've actually shown a couple things. Mm-hmm. And I was impressed because it wasn't this thing is gonna see this guy. You know who he's gonna be, huh? Huh? You know he's gonna be, huh?
Yeah.
And they do that a couple times, and it's I fucking hate you. But then where it's see, now he's actually this character is actually turning into the. Mm-hmm. It's in the first 2 episodes. So I kind of have high hopes for it. S.H.I.E.L.D., but here's the thing. I might get burned again because S.H.I.E.L.D. burned me on that. Where it's this guy could be, because I thought the dude was going to be Luke Cage, but he wasn't Luke Cage. Mm-hmm. And I thought that they were actually going to have Graviton, which they might have Graviton at this point, but...
Well, on the subject of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I've watched the season premiere of season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Mm-hmm. And
do they deliver? Just spoiler free. Do they deliver on anything?
Yes.
Really?
They brought a really sweet character, a villain from Marvel Comics. I won't want to tell you who it is.
Okay.
But he's I like him in sort of his elegant simplicity. They tried to sort of depict this character before in a Marvel movie, but I'll give you the hint though. It's not from any of the Marvel cinematic movies. It was done before the shared universe, and they tried to depict it a little bit. And I thought they did a pretty cool job. No, that'd be cool though, right?
From Blade 3?
No. It's the Absorbing Man.
Oh, Creel?
Crusher Creel, baby.
Creel. Do they have? Well, I guess that's not really, but that ties into the. That ties into like
Asgardian things.
Yeah.
One would think. In this, they seem to. He's. I guess I'm spoiling the shit out of this.
Have some spoilers.
Spoilers, everybody. No, I mean they
want some of this hot
they
spoiler?
figure it out in the first 20 minutes of the episode anyway.
Oh, okay.
But he's an agent of Hydra, or he works for Hydra.
Oh, okay. And they've been doing their experiments.
He was a metahuman, basically identified by S.H.I.E.L.D., and he was supposed to be taken into protective custody, essentially, but supposedly he was killed, but the officer that signed off on the report that he was killed was John Garrett. So it was
That makes sense. Oh, that's interesting. I still have to finish the first season.
They got some well, they didn't literally, but they were really doing some tearjerker stuff too, with some of the things they left as kind of on the table from last season. I have some high hopes for season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think they're gonna find some good footing here.
Can I say something kind of radical? I think that Dan Harmon should write a few episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think he needs to he needs to get off of his stump that he's standing on for Community.
It's over.
It's
like
it
don't
really
you want to just like Dan? It was a great show, and nobody is blaming you. But it's over.
Do something else. Like here's, it's a big thing. We're already at an hour. I'm sure it will come up again at some point.
If you want to hear us yak on some more about Dan Harmon and how he has to give up the fucking ghost, tune in next week and leave comments. Feel free to leave some questions for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here, I'll say until we get the other event up, feel free to even just leave them here, and we'll get to them next week.
Yeah,
leave them in the J&TRE week 58.
Just go to J&TRE Review Everything on Facebook. And
send us messages. Do stuff.
Post it on the page. We'll share it.
So that's about it. I think that'll wrap it up for J&TRE Review Everything Live.
I'm Jake.
I'm Trev, and thanks for watching.